because I like to check on you when you're out. I'm like, what's doing? How you doing? Like, make sure you got home. You got home at 3, you're up. You're like, let's do a podcast. And I'm like, down. I went to bed at like 9:30 and I'm struggling. So
The
like,
music
well
industry
done.
doesn't wait for us, Lauren.
It doesn't wait. Don't
No.
sleep on it.
No.
I
No.
slept on the last night. How's United Masters? You were in Dumbo, I take it?
Yeah, it was great. I love them. I love that company. Even though they lost their head of A&R and their head of marketing, David and Mike, who went over to Sony to relaunch. Which imprint are they relaunching again?
Jive, right?
Jive. Yeah. The company's great. They have such a good roster. They have Big X the Plug, their star, locked up for like, I don't want to disclose private information, but they have him. They have more records options on him. They have the rights to his music. They got other stuff. They hired a couple of Lone Wolves people recently.
I know.
So I love them. I love them.
Shout out to Vanessa, and I just want to say like major shout out Wolfpack win to Eric McKay and Dan Goldberg, who are now basically like heading up Bravado. Eric is GM and Dana is the SVP. And that news broke yesterday on Music Business Worldwide and Billboard everywhere. And I love those guys so much. I was so like, it was like when you and I have good things happen to us. Like I'm like, am I going to cry? Like, I don't know. I just felt so proud.
I know. And I mean, Eric has been talking about this for a long time. And finally the announcement came out yesterday. So it's interesting because we're going to talk a little bit today about the reports that have all come out in succession the last week. You have the IFPI, the International Federation of Phonograph, which is basically like the international RIAA.
Yeah.
Their report on the state of music commerce in 2025. We had the RIAA report come out. We had Spotify's Loud and Clear report come out. And we had the Luminate State of the Industry 2025 research report come out. It's interesting because they all say the data is all very similar. IFPI is tracking international, RIAA is just US.
Right.
Luminate's international. There's some variance in some of this data, but it's all pretty clear what's happening in music. And the headline is that it's doing pretty well. And we had a little bit of a down 2024 in terms of growth. The industry still grew, which it didn't grow. It contracted every year from 2000 until 2014. Every year contracted. For 2014 was the first year that recorded music grew. But the growth was really kind of small last year. It was like 3 or 4%. This year in certain sectors of music, it was closer to 10. It was like 8 or 9, depending on the report. And that's great because I think we all assumed that we were running out of streaming users.
People. You were running high value people.
Yeah. And Spotify is now, we'll put the report in the show notes, but the Spotify is now still growing. There's now more than 850 million people on streaming services worldwide. That is, a measurable percentage of the 8 billion people in the world. It's like more than 10% of people in the world are now either paying for or monetizing music
on Spotify alone.
Yes.
Or in streaming service right. It's not just Spotify. I know we use that as a default, but we've got Apple Music, YouTube, Pandora. We've got different like regional streaming services too. So that's pretty impressive. I've heard a lot of chatter, and I think there's a lot of like interest in the super fan tier, which keeps coming up, obviously, with like VC funds are like very curious about how streaming services are going to continue to tap into, those super fans that actually want to spend money. So is this part of first I have a question for you. Why did this grow up to 10% as opposed to other years, considering subscriptions have not changed drastically? And then what do you see as the next move forward to continue growth? Because Listen, big part of those major layoffs in the music industry were that not stagnant, but very small amount of growth that was not expected. So they were like, "Oh shit, we got to get rid of everybody because we don't know what's going to happen." I think that they overdid it because, like you just said, now we're at 9-10%. And what are you going to do? You're not focused on not breaking artists, but maybe doing more stable things like catalog acquisition. So what happens now?
Well, that's why when you mentioned Dan
Yeah,
Goldberg, and McKay going over to Bravado, the growth, it's the problem still persists. There is a limited number of people in the valuable territories that want to pay for music. And the
right.
growth largely came outside of the US and Western Europe.
Yes. Mhm.
So the numbers look good. 800, if I'm remembering correctly, 867 million on Spotify, over a billion for all the other DSPs combined. The value that you get from a ad supported user in Vietnam is not the same in
Of
Sweden.
course.
And the
Right.
stat that we all used to use in the music at labels was, one premium subscriber in Sweden is worth 20 ad supported subscribers in Vietnam or wherever.
And to
And
make just to add on to that, when people talk about like the ad, this is how much it costs to pay out. It's 0.002 cents per stream. That is not just in that's an aggregate of all of the different regions and the difference in what we pay in the US, which is a higher stream rate than you would pay in uh wherever else outside of the US. So just to make that clear, because I think there's like a misconception about like stream rates and how they do that math.
right,
It's basically an average. Right.
the royalty pool is aggregated across the world. So that's we Bravado is now launching in a big way with 4 new executive hires, and that's part of Universal strategy. And for those who don't know, Bravado is not, it's a merch
It's a
arm.
marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They have Fame House too, which is like their D2C part of that division, but they have always been kind of ahead of the game in the majors in terms of like merch and direct to consumer.
right. So how do you serve a super fan? Well, you do it more than just music, and you do it in everything else they want. And I'm tracking all these tech startups in music, over
Yeah.
1,000 now. And a lot of them aren't credible. A lot of them are hobbyists. You
Yeah.
can vibe code a product in an hour and get a
Right.
website up in 20 minutes. But of the 1,000 companies, the plurality of them are super fan engagement, super fan monetization. I'm not convinced that needs a tech solution. I mean, what a Bob Dylan super fan and what a K-pop super fan want is very different. I'm sure you need a tech solution to that, but there are there's a lot of value being left on the table in the music industry. If it's just like, I forget if I said this in our last podcast, but if we're paying the same subscription rate, you and I, to Spotify, whether you listen to one song a month or I listen to
Right.
hours a day, and it's weird. And
It's
for
weird, but
a lot of
to
money,
like my day job of head of business development, it's even more clear to me that, you know, Spotify is like Costco. You pay a membership, you go in, and there's all this stuff. Although you have to pay extra for the things in Costco, but it's like this mass market of music. Even in other superfan platforms, you're going for that artist. You get to pay for the music or pay what you want for the music. You get other access points. Spotify is very limited in what they can offer, and like you said, each customer right now is worth the same in that region, whether you stream a million times or you listen to the song once. So I think
I've never
that's
been
the
to a
limit
Costco.
here.
What is?
What?
I've never been to a Costco.
You love Costco. Everybody loves Costco.
I've never. I honestly have never. Is it like
We
a,
know
like a BJ's?
Yeah, you get a subscription. You get like you
Yeah.
pay
Um,
yearly to go in, and then like everything's just big in there.
Is there one in Manhattan? Like, where would I even go to a
There
Costco?
is. There's one on 116th Street, and then there's one in Brooklyn.
Oh, really? Okay.
But you could do obviously like they deliver, so
Oh,
you
they
know
do.
through Instacart. Yeah, life hacks.
We don't want Spotify to be the Costco of the music industry, and I think the startups that are doing well, and even in my theory, and you tell me if you think I'm wrong here.
Yeah,
I think we don't give music fans enough credit,
uh,
and
absolutely.
this comes up all the time when I'm talking to people about, well, generative AI is going to replace artists, and people just want to hear music, and fans we don't give fans enough credit. Really, they don't want this stuff. They want real artists, and I also don't think we give music fans enough credit, where they read all the stuff, they hear all the stuff about how streaming doesn't pay each individual artist very well, and that they want to, just like us, they want to incentivize people to be artists. So I feel like there's a lot of music fans out there who are happily pay $20, $25, $30 a month for Spotify if it means their cherished artists can be supported more.
But
And
they could do that dual thing. So we it even it's complimentary to streaming. So like it's like you're going to the artist's like pop-up event pre-release. You're getting to celebrate them. You're going directly to the artist to give them money. And then you're also supplementing that with a subscription service after, where you can playlist or you could do whatever you want.
yeah,
But there's this divide between, from the artist side, there's a divide where you get no fan data and you learn very little in these bigger platforms about who your fans are. And then there's these services in the front end where you get all the fan data, you get the money, you actually get revenue from it. And then you can transition into that larger pool where maybe you don't do as well. But there has to be another way. That these fans are saying, I have money, I want to pay for it, I want to be closer to the artist, and I want to know that it's going to the artist. And that's what's happening because we're giving them an infrastructure to do that.
yeah,
There was no place to do that before.
right. That's weird. There is no place to
There's
be.
no place.
Maybe like besides randomly selling like a
Or
recording
doing
on
that.
Gumroad or whatever. Like,
Totally. Or like,
yeah,
thinking about this pay what you want model, like going into Walmart and being like, hey, I'm going to pay $60 for this vinyl instead of the $40 it is. And they're like, what the fuck do I do with this extra $20? Like,
yeah,
you can't, there's no ways to show outside of like a tip jar, which is also weird. So like giving artists, like, giving fans the opportunity to pay what you want is like a real interesting test to see that they will. And 40% of them pay more than what the minimum price is.
really.
So it's
I remember years ago, I had worked with some of the individual members of Radiohead on their solo projects.
like,
Two of them in particular, the drummer and Johnny Greenwood. And their manager was telling me they were the first kind of big act to do a pay what you will.
mhm.
And this was like, God, 2007 or 8 or something. And the manager was like, you'd be surprised how little people are paying for this. They just,
Well, you
even,
set a minimum price. Like if you want to chart, like you have to set a minimum wholesale price and then like you take it from there. But like you don't give the people an option to pay like $1,
well, that's what they did. They were like, this was when probably Radiohead was at the height of their kind of mysterious fame, and they were the most beloved left of center act on the planet. And the manager was like, we just kind of put it up and see, pay what you will. And he's like, the average, at that point, iTunes download would have been $10 or whatever. He's like, the
Right.
average what we got for each recording was like way under $10.
Which
And
is so weird because people actually then understood the value of music more than they do now.
I know they did. Yeah,
So
they
it's
did.
like so
And
interesting to think like,
it's also the height of piracy, right? Like,
ugh, like
there's a
Len.
lot of people who could get that anyway. But then it's interesting that they signed a Capitol, that Radiohead did, and then did a more traditional release on the same record, and it actually did pretty well.
Mm,
So
the psychology. I mean,
yeah, who
it's
knows?
always like the opposite of what you think is going to
But
happen. So
so it's interesting that Universal's, they've had Bravado and Fame House for a long time, but now they're doubling down on it. And
well, they did.
all the other majors have their own merch line too. Sony recently maybe 3 years ago, consolidated all their merch teams.
Yep.
Thread Shop and who I don't remember who else they had.
They got rid of Thread Shop. They not got rid of. They absorbed into Ceremony of Roses when they
Seven
acquired
Roses.
them.
Yeah.
But they still like. I would say that like Bravado, like Fame House is more of like the default for their artists. They're actually spending money on rights. They're acquiring merch rights, and then they're sort of facilitating the whole thing from the storefront to fulfillment and distribution. And Sony's is still a little bit more scattered from what I understand, where not everybody's going through Ceremony of Roses. They're still using, Amazon or Live Nation or whomever is going to bid on highest on the merch rights.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm actually sure where Warner's at with all of that. I know they do have
Live Nation do
Live
merch.
Nation has merch now. Yep.
Wow. I think we're going to have Sam Shishel, the head of social product and digital innovation from Live Nation, on the podcast soon.
We absolutely need to we need to dive into Live Nation for sure.
I know. There's so much crazy stuff. Not even
Yeah.
just the settlement with the Department of Justice, but like, people think about Live Nation like they're just a big promoter, and they're like so much more than that. Like the
Oh
stuff
my
that
God.
Sam works on is like influencer marketing. Like she has like an
You
influence.
didn't know there was merch. You're like, they have
Yeah.
merch. You're like spending
Yeah.
money buying merch rights.
Yeah. So do you think, I was surprised too. I distinctly remember being, when I was at doing A&R and such, Warner label, distinctly remember being at Warner's pre-streaming,
Yeah.
and Paramore was this success story at Atlantic because it was the first act on Warner's to make more than $1 million through expanded rights.
Wow.
So we had the rights to like merch, some touring, and the recorded music, obviously. And it was like, this is the new model. This is like the new model of expanded rights. And the analogy that the chairman of Warner's at the time used to give is that, we're doing all this work to market these artists, and we're opening this restaurant essentially, and we only get a piece of like the dessert because these artists are selling massive revenue, doing massive touring revenue and merch revenue and other branded deals and other things outside of recorded music based on the backs of our marketing efforts. But we only get to take a tiny piece of it because we're only monetizing the recording. And this is when the recording industry is like heavily pirated. So, but the expanded rights thing never really took off. And I was doing my lecture I'm teaching a label operations class at Berkeley right now. I was doing this lecture on like different kinds of deals, recording deals. And I was talking about expanded rights, also known as 360 deals.
Yeah.
They never really took off. Like I didn't do many of them. And I don't think I did one in the 6 years I was at Sony until 2023. I had some touring and deals. I don't think I ever did a merch deal. And why didn't that take off? Like why didn't Ceremony of Roses become a bigger deal at Sony? Why didn't Bravado? Why are they now just relaunching it in 2026 when they've had it for a long time? Why isn't there more merch rights at labels?
So a few things. I think that it was one of the things that was retained most by artists because they knew that the margins were pretty good. Like they were making money. If you were touring, you're selling merch and you're making money. Why would I give that away to the label? Even like, you could sell, you could, I think Ceremony had maybe Adele's merch, but just for touring, and they only got like 3%. It was something very low for Ceremony at least, but it was still significant because it was Adele and it was going to be volume. But I honestly think that like the research sort of has shown now that it is a good investment for Bravado or Fame House, whomever's making those investments into the merch rights. It's a good investment if you are going to recoup. Not like some of the 360 deals that they were putting out there where the label was never recouping, neither was the artist. It was just like a hot mess. They can spend $7 to $10 million on Beyonce's merch rights and they will make it back.
Yeah. And it's not so I guess what the label is offering to is like, we're going to make money off your merch, but we're going to like fulfill it. We're going to produce
We're
it.
going to do everything. We're going to create ease.
And it's like labels don't have a crazy advantage there because merch is everywhere and anyone can do merch. Whereas
now it's like online. You could just
oh my God, I cannot wait to do our Lone Wolves printable run. Like I'm seriously stop telling me I can't do it. I'm doing it.
You can do it. I told you could do it. We just need a minute. We want to do it right. But on the merch piece, I think that the thing now that's getting exciting is that these merch companies are buying warehouses in different regions so that a fan doesn't need to pay $50 in shipping to have it shipped to Africa. So it's not just like this US and UK focused warehouses. So that part of it then expands into regions where fans internationally could never buy the things that they wanted to buy or get the vinyl they wanted to get. And that then increases the revenue exponentially.
Yeah, and if you're a global company like Universal, you can do that.
Yeah,
There's merch companies that are still pretty segmented by region.
Yes, for sure. And there's
like Nigeria is projected to be a top 10 music market in 4 years. Like Lagos is like popping off. Actually, didn't you guys didn't even go out to Nigeria last year and didn't Mag go out there and like set up something there?
Probably it was pre-me, but we are getting a lot of African artists on the platform and they're doing really well. That's a region that we're really excited about. And there are companies out there like, Diggers, which is one of them, that are really focusing on like physical product internationally. Like we report to Illuminate, we have warehouses everywhere. We could do, from start to finish, from the design piece of it to the fulfillment, just to because they know this is like a ripe market. There are markets in Asia as well. There are markets that have not been paid attention to in terms of global artists that are based in the US and UK. They did not have access to global audiences beyond streaming.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you need a multifaceted strategy now. And, it was it was a mistake for the music industry. We basically just outsourced our monetization strategy to Spotify for 15 years. We were like, all right, we're just going to, you guys take care of the monetization. We're just going to take care of the IP. And it's very clear that that was a mistake. And you need a multifaceted strategy. So if you're an artist today, even a kind of not necessarily a household name, but you need your streaming, but you also need like a D2C, like even solution. You need a merch solution that may or may not be with your label. And I'm really interested in some of the disruptions around touring and ticketing. That is one part of the industry that has not been disrupted. And part of it has to do with how hard it is to disrupt things that are IRL and the way that ticketing companies have deals with particular venues. You can't do that, but
they did a really good job, like Ticketmaster, Live Nation, like to actually start to own venues. The thing that they did was like majorly gatekeep data. So like they basically were like, this is the only way that you could fill up this venue. You're going to sell through us and we're not going to provide any of your fan data. And
so
that's a thing. That's like so messed up.
Ask you this uneven. So Spotify Wrapped is the biggest farce in the music industry. Everyone gets all crazy in December over Spotify Wrapped. They don't actually tell you much in terms of data. And they know, like Spotify knows down to the IP address who's listening to what. How much are you hearing at even about the data collection piece of this versus the direct revenue? How much of the data collection piece is like
huge? It is why even as a standalone product where you have the ability to chart, you have the ability to get all of your first party data, either export it or use our Connect tool to cater to fans. That is something when you look there will never be a replacement for Spotify, for Instagram, for TikTok, but they will never ever give you your data. So you have to find a place where you can start to collect that and then use those other platforms to obviously like get the word out. Use them as marketing tools, but they are not going to build you as a brand. They will give you a little bit of attention, but if you really want to look at the long tail of things, you have to look at your data, your fan data. You have to build on it, or else how are you supposed to keep doing this? And we're looking at that as lone wolves too. It's like we need to understand who our database is. Who are these people? How are we going to grow the database? How are we going to connect them? Who are they? And how can we facilitate programs around them like that? That's so important. Or else, like, what is your brand?
Yeah. Knowing that is really important because that informs how you grow and the decisions you make and
your long-term health as a company and a brand too. It's like it's going to be very hard to continue to grow. And that's like what I think emerging artists are looking at when they're going to distribution companies instead of labels, and they're using platforms like Even, and they're relying on other services, like sort of piecemealing together what their release plan is going to look like. And part of that, there is an advantage to it because a lot of these platforms are like, we'll show you your data analytics. We'll show you your fan data. Like they have the opportunity to build. You just have to have sort of a business mind on how to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting that when I was doing a lecture for one of my Berkeley classes, I just included Spotify in the social media camp. Like we're talking about how to optimize. I teach this grad level class in Manhattan at Power Station Studio for artists, and we're talking about how to optimize your careers. And when I left school, I had a recording contract waiting for me. It was a different time, and these young artists don't have that. So we're talking about how to optimize your career, and I'm just like, Spotify at this point is just think about it like TikTok. Like it's not. You're not going to know. You're not going to make a lot of money. You're not going to know who's listening to you. It's a black box, just like any social media platform, and you should treat it that way.
You're totally right. The only indication of how you stand with your artists and what they can see is from Wrapped, honestly. This is your top. You were part of like a 3% or the 1% or whatever it is, but they're not like, they're sharing that for virality with fans. They're not sharing it for growth for the artist.
Yeah. Well,
we didn't even talk today. We're supposed to talk about Too Lost and distribution companies and kind of where they stand. But I think we got off the rails, which is fine.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get with the Lone Wolves State of Music and Tech podcast.
Thursday at 9:15.
That includes us. We don't know what we're going to get. So,
right, exactly.
Well, don't forget to like and subscribe and we will talk about the distribution space, the long tail distribution space, and the independent financing space on the next episode, because there's a lot happening, especially with 2 lawsuits, massive